Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Here we have it, Monday morning. Bitcoin has hit yet another all-time high. The miners are responding in a big way, a sea of green across the board today. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the mining sector right now, your price target for Bitcoin in the final 2 weeks of 2024, and your outlook heading into 2025. Now, with that being said, buckle up and get ready for takeoff. Okay, guys, so that's right. Today is the day we have all been waiting for. Bitcoin continuing to rally over the weekend in a massive way, setting multiple new all-time highs. We had massive institutional buying over the weekend, a surge of macro news, and finally, Anthony, the miners are following suit. This is one of the biggest criticisms we hear on the channel. Bitcoin is going up, the miners are down, the miners are flat. Well, not today. The miners are up in a big way. What an excellent start to the week.
Great start to the week. Been a great weekend for Bitcoin. All-time high yesterday, all-time high today. And the miners are starting to follow in suit again. So yeah, like you say, a lot of criticism on the channel in recent weeks about the Bitcoin miners not correlating enough with Bitcoin. But believe you me, we've highlighted this before, there are at least 9 miners that we cover that are higher than the Bitcoin price since the 1st of October. Because we know from the Miner Madness competition, we're keeping a track of the Bitcoin price and the mining prices. And if you look at the likes of Bitdeer, it's literally, 3 times the increase of Bitcoin in the same period. So, yes, some miners are down and haven't performed as well, but at least, 9 of the miners that we cover are higher than Bitcoin price in that time. And Bitcoin's up about 64%. So that just gives you an indication. 9 of them are above 64%.
No kidding. We've talked about this correlation, the delay factor multiple times. These patterns we're starting to see emerge. It's nice to see Bitcoin catching up. But again, we talk about patience on this channel, Anthony. And a lot of times you've just got to zoom out a little bit, give the market some time to understand, react to the data, which you talk about so frequently on the channel. Now, in other news, you've gone off to Turkey for the week. You've taken a vacation, well-deserved for the year. You look like you got some sun there. While you were on the plane, Anthony, heading to Turkey, Bitcoin decided to rally in a big way. So if we zoom into the Bitcoin price itself, currently around $107,000. I don't know if this is due to the vacation effect or not, Anthony, but you might need to take a few more trips next year.
Certainly need to, but yeah, no, it's been a good few weeks now. Ever since it breached 100,000, it tested it. It dropped a little bit below 100,000, but we've said before, it's just the drops now seem to be far smaller than they were in the previous cycle, and it just seems to be going on and on. Just when you think I'll wait for it to go down 10,000, it doesn't go down 10,000. It drops maybe 5 or 6,000, and it jumps up. 7 or 8,000. So, I think I've seen enough tweets now to say that, your opportunity to buy is now. If you don't take the opportunity, you might not get that same opportunity again in the future. So, yeah, 107,000 today. Who knows where it's going to be by the end of the year? Certainly higher than we projected in our estimations. I think I had it down as 88,888, and you had it down as 99,999. So we're both stumped at the moment, but we're happy because Bitcoin's higher.
We certainly are. And we said at the start of the competition, that's a good problem to have. Speaking of Miner Madness, we're putting together the final touches on what we're coining Miner Madness 2.0, going to be kicking off in Q1 of 2025. So stay tuned for that later this week. We're going to have details. Very exciting competition. And as we've said, Anthony, possibly one of the most successful trading competitions in history, as I think everyone in the competition is up double-digit percentages now.
Amazing. And actually, if you look at the leaders, we're not talking, 100% up, but we're talking above 150% up in the last sort of 7 or 8 weeks. So if you've invested wisely in your choices at that point in time, you'll be sitting on a very, very nice profit in a very short space of time.
Most definitely. Now, speaking of investing and choices, we talked about a theme last week, Anthony, that we feel this migration from MicroStrategy to the miners has begun. We laid out 3 reasons why. We would encourage you guys to go in and take a look at that. It's pinned on my Twitter as well. We wanted to go into the mid-morning market update. Now, I said a sea of green in the intro. The miners have absolutely gone ballistic this morning. Many of the miners up double-digit percentages. Cipher leading the pack here today, which is great to see. That's one of my top 3 picks as well. I actually added MicroStrategy into this view. I've highlighted it down the list there, Anthony. Green on the day, but only able to beat out 3 of the miners at the point this image was taken. So I wanted to see, number one, your response to the Bitcoin miners, and secondly, if you think this trend with MicroStrategy is materializing.
It might be that. I mean, bear in mind, we've seen a lot of people in this space, a lot of retail investors have been switching from miners to MicroStrategy all throughout this year, and those that have done so have been really successful. MicroStrategy has been the go-to stock for 2024. But what we saw happen when Bitcoin reached its all-time high initially in November, the MicroStrategy stock price went over $500 for literally just a short space of time and then dropped. I think it dropped something like $150 on the same day from that high. It's starting to again move up above $400 now, and in pre-market today, I think it was closer to $450. It's still up, but it's dropped back down to, like it's showing there, $429 at the time the screenshot was taken just before the podcast started. But the mining stocks, we know there's a lot more volatility in the mining stocks than there is in MicroStrategy or in Bitcoin. And MicroStrategy really is a pure proxy play for Bitcoin. That's all it's doing. It's buying Bitcoin, keeping it on the balance sheet. And we know it's a software company, but the assets and the value of that software company are minuscule compared to the $103 billion market capitalization that it currently holds there. $103 billion. It's now going into the S&P 100 imminently, which means a whole new raft of investors will have to buy that stock because, investors will have to buy the basket of stocks for the S&P 100. And if you think about popularity for investment funds, the S&P, not just in the US, but worldwide, is a benchmark for investments. So if you're investing, $100 a month in your investment account or in your Roth IRA or in your ISA, the chances are most people are using the S&P as the benchmark, and therefore some of your monthly payments will now have to go into MicroStrategy. So what we'll probably see is a little surge as that starts to happen when that stock officially gets welcomed in there. But it's imminently going to happen now. I think it's this week it moves in, or next week, maybe the 23rd. But it's definitely been announced it's going into the top 100, and it won't stop there. I mean, 103 billion is where it is today. But if any of these analysts are close with their Bitcoin prices, we'll see that that 103 pale in significance. But the mining stocks today, and you've highlighted Cipher there as the biggest stock for the day. With Cipher doing well today, we've had an announcement from Tyler Page, the CEO, who's let us know that the upgrade at their Odessa data center is now pumping the cheapest electricity in the industry for one of the most efficient fleets. And they end of year target 13.5 exahash looks like it's been achieved there. 18.9 joules a terahash and 2.7 cents a kilowatt hour. That sort of, in terms of cost, that's beating the likes of Riot and IREN, who are at industry lows as well. Soluna arguably around about 3 cents mark, but 2.7 cents is great. Now the 18.9 joules a terahash, that's not as competitive with IREN's 15. So in terms of profitability, I can tell you now, Cipher will be achieving around about, if we just look at mining margin, around about 77% margin with that data in front of me there now. So at 2.7 cents, 18.9 joules. But if we look at IREN, who are operating at 15 joules a terahash and about 3 cents a kilowatt hour, they're operating at 80 cents. So we've said before, what are the things that you need to mine the cheapest Bitcoin? Having the cheapest energy is one thing, but having an efficient fleet is another thing. And IREN have picked all the miners in terms of efficiency because they've literally replaced their whole fleet with the majority of S21 Pros. And their average efficiency is 15 joules a terahash. That's industry high. And Cipher's quote there, that's actually in second place with CleanSpark, just above the 19 joules a terahash. But I know from doing some work today that the margins are 80% for IREN and about 77%, 76, 77% for Cipher. So Cipher at the moment, in terms of mining margin, which is just taking the electricity cost, it's the second cheapest on the market compared to IREN at the moment.
Great. And Bitdeer having another strong showing as well, Anthony. I don't believe we have any news out from them today, but this is one that just continues to go from strength to strength. Every day, I feel like over the last 2 weeks, Bitdeer's been in the top few stocks here.
Bitdeer's having an enormous run in the last few months. If you look at the 52-week low for Bitdeer, it was down at $5.23 earlier in the year, and it's reached a high of $25.02, and it's fast approaching that high again today. So, they're one of the few stocks that have reached their highs in the last few weeks. There's only probably about 5 or 6 stocks that have done that, so there's still a long way to go for some of these stocks. I mean, we look at CleanSpark today, having a reasonably good day, say up, nearly 8% today. They're literally halfway towards their 52-week high, which happened in March. So they've still got a long way to go. Another stock that you could, Bitfarms as well, having a nice run today, over 10% up today. There's been a lot of criticism of Bitfarms in the last few months. Didn't reach that target in June that expected. Have reached it now, but we're in December now. That's a 5-month delay on reaching that target. The market didn't like that. They like targets and they like them to be achieved on time. And those miners that are achieving those targets on time seem to be getting the premium in their share prices to warrant that. So, IREN share price today, again, up nearly 10% there. They're at 14.38. They've had a high of 15.92 this year, which was, I think that was as not too far away from where we are now. That was and excuse me, I'll start again. And IREN at 14.38 today. Not too far away from their high of 15.92. They're the one that achieved all their targets this year. They were at 10 exahash back in June and then quoted they'll go to 30 instead of 20, and it's actually 31 now. And all the machines are in Childress site waiting to be plugged in. So we know they've got no issues with logistics there. That'll be showing 31 exahash before the end of the month. So that'll be another target achieved there. And the share price and the market capitalization of over $3 billion warrants that. And people saying, oh, these share prices there. Look at the market capitalizations of some of these companies. There was only a couple of companies over $1 billion a year ago. There was only Riot and Marathon over $1 billion a year ago. Now you go down the list. You've got Bitdeer over $4 billion. You've got Cipher, $2.5 billion there. Wolf, over $3 billion there. Hut, nearly $3 billion. IREN, over $3 billion. Marathon, who are leading the way and have led the way in terms of market capitalization for the last 4 years, they're over $8 billion. So Marathon Digital are today around about the highs of 2021. But in terms of shares, they've got 339 million shares outstanding there. You can see that issued shares at the moment, nearly 340 million shares. They had 100 million shares back in 2021. So when people say, will it get back to $80 a share? It's going to take a long time for that to come. The Bitcoin price would have to really rally because they've got 3 times as many shares or 3.5 times as many shares in issue as they had when it reached that high. So, you don't get extra value for issuing more shares. Them are a dilution, so you have to then wait for the actual physical stock to increase to get any benefit from that. So, but 8.5 billion nearly there today. CleanSpark, they were at 4 billion back in early this year in March. They're catching up to 4 billion now, but again, they've issued significant amount of shares this year. I think it was 42 million shares just in the last 3 months. So they've been using the ATM there. Core Scientific, the second largest miner at 4.67, and Riot just on their toes at 4.62. So we've got a load of mining companies all over, not just over $1 billion, but quite a few over $4 billion and heading towards 5, and Marathon well over $8 billion. So, for all them comments about the miners aren't doing anything, they're growing massively. And as we can see, you've already highlighted there, Bryce, we've got MicroStrategy, including this table, just to show you how that's performing today compared to the miners.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought them up as well, Anthony. We had big buying again out of Michael Saylor over the weekend. So we're going to talk about some of the news in relation to the miners, the capped call strategy, as you mentioned. But before we do, Michael Saylor went on yet again a buying spree over the weekend, acquiring 15,350 Bitcoin. We've talked about this phenomenon at lengths on the channel, Anthony. The amount of Bitcoin held on exchange continues to go lower and lower. It's now just north of 2 million coins. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these coins, just because they're on exchange, don't necessarily mean they're up for sale. But as that balance continues to decrease, these big purchases like Michael Saylor, will come on to Riot in a second, really has a material impact in price, and that's exactly what we're seeing today. So I'll let you comment on MicroStrategy's purchase, Anthony. Then we can get into Riot with another update on their HODL as well. Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now.
Yeah, that's another big purchase. That takes them well over 440,000 Bitcoin now. And if you look at the market capitalization, already highlighted, well over 100 billion. They're given, well over 2x in terms of valuation. And we raised this last week on a number of podcasts. We look at some of these mining companies and start identifying the value for their facilities, for their mining rigs, for their cash and Bitcoin in the treasury, and start adding those figures up there. You'll find that quite a few of these miners have got a higher asset value than they have got a market capitalization. That can't be the same said for MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy have got, effectively close to maybe 50 billion in Bitcoin now with the Bitcoin price today, but they're given 103 billion market capitalization. So the market's given them a massive premium. And once that premium starts switching to some of these mining companies, you might see these mining companies really rally. And the fact, MicroStrategy has been given that premium. It is, as I said earlier, it's the ideal proxy investment for Bitcoin. It should correlate identically with Bitcoin because that's what it's holding. It's holding Bitcoin itself. It's not having to produce any Bitcoin. It's literally just buying Bitcoin, putting it on the treasury there. He's not selling any Bitcoin. He's even buying, I think he's even got some like 17,000 Bitcoin in his own personal account.
Yeah.
And if you think about 17,000, that's about the same amount as the likes of Riot Platforms have got, and they've been mining for like the best part 4 or 5 years now. So yeah, it's just mind blowing. But these mining companies are just not getting that at the moment, just not getting that same premium that MicroStrategy is being given, and they've got Bitcoin, and quite a few of them now have been buying Bitcoin. So we saw Marathon purchase, a lot of Bitcoin. Their stack now is well over 40,000 Bitcoin on the balance sheet. I think they were at 12,000 at the start of the year, so they've grown massively. Riot are over 17,000 Bitcoin. They've been buying Bitcoin. They just purchased, $500 million of Bitcoin at the end of last week. That's been added to the balance sheet. We'll find out more from Jason tomorrow on the podcast. I'm not sure it's the permanent strategy for them. They're not trying to follow Michael Saylor, but they believe that there's an opportune moment to buy Bitcoin. But let's give Jason the opportunity to say, what his thoughts were about the convertible and the purchase and what he sees going forward on that particular issue.
Yeah, that's going to be a great podcast tomorrow. 10 a.m. Mountain Time should be out right around lunchtime. Basically, talking to Jason, who's one of the industry leaders, about the strategy, the psychology, the mentality of these companies heading into 2025 with all of these changing factors like the all time high price, the strategic reserve, the Trump administration, obviously, the new strategy around convertible notes. And with that being said, Anthony, CleanSpark actually jumping on that bandwagon as well. So they've announced the pricing of a $550 million convertible, 0% for CleanSpark. So we've seen a little bit different strategy here. Some of them are going for 0% interest or lower interest coupons. However, they have a capped call or a fixed ceiling sort of strategy. And then we have miners like Riot that have a slightly higher interest rate, but a different look and feel to the deal itself.
Yeah, exceedingly good opportunity for CleanSpark to, achieve a 0%. But like you say, there are some issues. You've got to have calls in place to cover on this particular issue, on this particular convertible. But 550 million with the opportunity of another 100 million if the option's taken up by these type of investors who'll be accessing this. The interesting thing from CleanSpark compared to some of the other miners is they're not using this for buying Bitcoin. So what they're going to do is they're going to purchase or repurchase some of its common stock, about 145 million worth, and then the remaining proceeds will be to clear the outstanding line of credit with Coinbase. There's some further capital expenditures. Don't forget, CleanSpark are growing massively. They've got a 37 exahash target for this year. They're at 33.8 as we speak, so they're still going to get over 3.2 exahash in the next couple of weeks. Plus, then they've got a big target to achieve next year. So some of this funding here will help towards getting some of that infrastructure, mining machines, all in there, and then others for other general corporate purposes. And if you think about that, they've been hodling literally every Bitcoin for the majority of 2024. They're having to use the likes of the ATM and these convertibles to pay for their general bills. So to pay staff, to pay the energy costs, to pay overheads. So, don't think there's magic monopoly money out there to cover these costs. They've had to do that through using other levers to raising capital. And they've been successful in raising, a ton of capital through the ATM over the last 2 years. And now they've seen the likes of Marathon and Riot and Bitdeer, amongst other miners who've made some significant strides in convertible notes, and CleanSpark have gone and done the same.
Most definitely. And they did put a footer in about the cap call strategy. Same kind of context as we saw with IREN. So essentially an anti-dilution measure here, Anthony, using an option strategy or call strategy. You'll see they set their cap price at double the current share price, exact same as we saw with IREN as well. So my understanding of this is basically giving the company the opportunity to offset the conversion of these notes to shares with cash up until a certain point to again eliminate that dilution. But we will get that confirmed from IREN or CleanSpark next time we have the team on. But a great move. And again, as we see in the mining space, when one miner makes a move like this, we tend to see many of the others follow, maybe with a little bit of a twist or flair of their own. So on that same note, Anthony, we did actually get an update from Riot as well, talking about the closing of their convertible senior note. So I'll let you finish off that section of the video, then we'll get into some of the smaller miners.
Yeah, so Riot have announced they're closing 594.4 million convertible senior notes, and that included 69.4, the aggregate principal amount of the 2030 notes, which was an option to purchase additional amounts there. The net proceeds, approximately 579 million after deducting the discounts and commissions, and offering expenses, and these are payable by Riot themselves. Riot is pleased to announce that already deployed, and we knew that from last week. The update there, they'd already literally spent all of net proceeds from the offering to acquire additional Bitcoin. probably a timely way to do it as well, because the Bitcoin price today, as we've seen there, another all-time high. Better to have bought it last week than this week, in my mind.
Yeah, very interesting to see Jason pulling the trigger on that, Anthony. It looks like they were able to acquire 667 Bitcoin with the proceeds of that convertible note at an average of 101,135 per coin. So already in profit on those weekend purchases. Now, with that being said, we're going to move over to Gryphon Mining. They've come out with their November update, a little delayed here compared to some of the other miners. We know that Steve Gutterman just took the top spot there in terms of CEO position. We had him on the podcast. Looks like they're starting to get things headed in the right direction, Anthony. Some big updates in terms of their power costs and production looking forward.
Yes, they brought out the initial start with the update first, and they mined 17.26 Bitcoin. They achieved just under $1.5 million in revenues, and that was at an average price of about $86,000 per Bitcoin. One thing that Gryphon have done that not all the miners do, they've actually highlighted what the energy costs were associated with that revenue, and it was $1.16 million. So you can see straight away there's a margin there of about $330,000. Now think about Gryphon. Gryphon are a company that have all their mining hosted by a third party. So, we've had Rob on earlier this year, and if you think about staffing costs for the likes of Gryphon or overheads, they'll be a lot lower than the majority of companies because they don't have a significant amount of staff there. In fact, they've just recently announced again they've hired Eric Galley, who's an energy industry leader, so he's going to join the team there. The team's probably about 4 or 5 at the moment, so and all sort of with great backgrounds. Eric's got like 18 years of energy sector expertise, and he managed 1.5 billion in upstream and integrated oil and gas portfolios. So he's obviously got a significant amount of experience in similar type businesses. He'll bring a wealth of that to the table. But if you think of the likes of some of the team there who've worked for, Rob Chang was the CFO at Riot Platforms, and Sim, the CFO at the moment, he was with Marathon Digital back in 2021 when that share price and the market capitalization was $8 billion. So he's had experience of working in the big in a big mining company as well. So they've got a wealth of expertise across the company, but they are a small company. So, you know, they might pay a slightly higher fee for energy because there's a hosting element within that fee. But when it comes to the overheads, it's basically then salaries and maybe some office costs. There shouldn't be a significant amount of there. So that 330,000, if they can achieve that 330,000 of gross margin every month, that's over $4 million a year. I'm sure that's enough to cover salaries and office space and a few other bits and pieces. But good numbers. We've also talked, I think we mentioned it last week on the podcast about the fact that they've executed a transformative agreement to acquire natural gas assets in British Columbia that could produce low-cost power for 100 megawatts to 1 gigawatt. So again, Rob was indicating, before he was replaced as CEO, that they were looking at areas, a significant amount of different areas and opportunities, and this is one now that they've signed off on. So it's all about getting the power in place, and it's all about getting super low cost power. And they started at 100 megawatts, which has a potential to be expanded to 1 gigawatt. So all in all, a good update. Yes, it's a bit later than we expected, but when you get a good update like this, you don't mind waiting a few extra days for it.
No, you sure don't. And shaping up to be a really nice looking start to the year for Gryphon as well. Now, DMG has come out. They're going to be coming out with Q4 full year numbers on the 18th. So we're going to be reaching out to them today and looking to schedule an interview if you guys have any questions for that team. The final company that came out with some news today was Soluna. So this is one we've covered a few times again recently on the channel. Anthony, talking about the final conversion and payoff of their convertible note.
Yes, they've announced today that they've completed the final conversion payoff following a reprice of the conversion price, and therefore what they've done now is they've eliminated this debt from the company balance sheet. So this one-time reprice allowed for a conversion and payoff in one transaction, approximately 772,000. And it's just, one thing that, Soluna needed to look at was the balance sheet. Everything else if you look at their projects, their income and expenditure, that's all manageable there. But the balance sheet had a few areas, that would have a few red flags, and this is one of those areas now that's been put to rest now. That'll strengthen the balance sheet. And they recently did some conversions in terms of shares for debt. So again, strengthening the balance sheet that way there. And if they can strengthen the balance sheet more, it gives them more opportunity in terms of raising debt with a strong balance sheet, and maybe not having to search for a partner for every one of its projects. It might be able to actually do some of these projects, increase the size of these projects itself, with the right capital levers in place. But this is certainly a welcome update. There's a lot of Soluna retail investors out there. I'm part of a Telegram group where there's quite a number of them following Soluna quite closely. The share price hasn't responded. I think it was one of the few share prices in the red earlier today. But we know that Soluna, I think about 3 or 4 months ago, had reached $8. At the moment, it's just under $3. So potentially, to get back to its year high, it's got a significant way to go, but potentially it could do that. They've got a lot of good projects on the go. If you read my recent article that got released today by Compass Mining, I highlight some of the projects that are in place. When sort of like revenues are expected from these projects. So have a read through that if you get the chance there. All the metrics are in the article for all the miners there. There's 14 miners in the article. So have a look and, have a look if you get, 5 or 10 minutes to read through that and catch up with all the November updates.
Yeah, sounds good, Anthony. You can tell a lot of these miners are really jockeying for position, getting these final pieces of the equation tied up before the start of 2025. Should be an extremely exciting Q1 in the mining space. Q4, the Miner Madness competition is coming to a close in 2 weeks, Anthony. So that's going to be one to watch. Make sure you guys log onto the website, check where you are. We're going to be awarding prizing to the top 5 contestants on the leaderboard. Anthony, the miners continuing to push farther into the green as the podcast continues. An excellent day all around from a Bitcoin perspective, from a mining perspective, and hopefully from your portfolio perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, all-time high a couple of times today. Let's hope it carries on for the rest of the week.
Sounds good. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Interview with Jason Last, CEO of Riot Platforms. Let us know if you have any questions or comments for Jason in the section below. Where you currently rank in the Miner Madness competition and your price target for Bitcoin in the final 2 weeks of 2024. Thanks so much, you guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow.